Imagine, if you will, going to the best amusement park in the world. You only intend to go there for a few hours or maybe for the entire day. While you're there, you step onto one of the most amazing rides that you have ever seen in your entire life. This ride spins you around and then shoots you into the air and then lets you fall back down, and then right before you hit the ground, you shoot back up and then you spin around some more. And there are people laughing and bright lights, and this is the most incredible, euphoric experience that you could ever imagine. While you're at the park, it's almost as if you're in a different world altogether. You know that you have a life outside of the park and that it's a good life. But you don't give a lot of thought to that life when you're on the ride. So, while you spin around and laugh and enjoy yourself, time marches on in the outside world. Now, imagine that it's time to leave the amusement park and it's time to step back into your life in the world outside of the park. As you approach the gate, a clown comes running up to you and grabs your hand and begs you to just ride one more ride. Well, it doesn't take much to convince you since you've already had such an amazing time already. You head back towards the midway and you tell yourself, just a few more rides and then I'll go home. Before you know it, you're spinning around again and you're laughing and you're going up and then you're falling back towards the ground, and just before you hit the ground the ride takes a sharp turn upwards again and you're having a great time. Finally, you see the sun beginning to rise and you realize that you've spent the entire night in the amusement park. Grudgingly, you make your way towards the gate so that you can go home and resume your life outside of the park. As you approach the gate, drowsiness overtakes you and you lie down to sleep on a bench, and you sleep there for several hours. When you wake up, you hear the music playing on the midway. You briefly think about riding the ride again, but then you tell yourself, no, I need to go home. I need to take care of my children. I need to go to work. I need to pay some bills, for crying out loud. As you approach the park exit, you see the very same clown who waylaid you yesterday. You laugh and you wave him off, but he just won't take no for an answer. Believe it or not, the clown turns slightly evil and drags you back to the midway, and he compels you to get back on the ride. You're a little bit upset and you know that you need to get home, but then you begin to enjoy the ride and you spend the entire night in the amusement park. This cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. Eventually, the amusement park ride just doesn't hold the same thrill that it used to, and the clown has become more and more evil. Sitting on a bench in the amusement park one day, you suddenly realize that you've been in this amusement park for months now, maybe even years. You wonder what's become of your family, your finances, your life. You become so concerned that you actually do the impossible and you escape from the amusement park. Once you get home, you find that while you were trapped in the amusement park, your life on the outside has fallen to pieces. You try to put it back together as best you can, but you're finding that your family members are angry at you. They're hurt by your absence. Your boss gave up on you a long time ago and found somebody to replace you. Your bank account? Well, your bank account and your finances are in complete shambles, and your friends no longer trust you. You might even find that you have legal trouble because apparently staying in the amusement park overnight is against the law. And not only that, but as you stand there and survey your broken and devastated life, you can still hear the carnival music coming from the amusement park. And you can smell the popcorn. And you can hear the euphoric screams of people riding the ride. And it calls to you. Oh yeah, you know that with a lot of hard work you can eventually rebuild your life. But you could also be back in the amusement park tonight and not have to think about the devastation around you. Meth addiction is a lot like this story. If you have spent time in the amusement park and you want to get out and stay out for good, this video is for you. Almost nobody begins using meth with the intention of becoming a meth addict. Most people begin just out of curiosity, wanting to experience the euphoria that they've heard about, but they eventually find themselves trapped in a way of life that they both love and hate. Eventually, their lives fall apart, and they have to keep taking more and more meth in order to achieve the same high. Maybe getting into some criminal activity in order to finance the high, and oftentimes finding that they don't enjoy it all that much anymore, but that they're compelled to keep going. If you're a meth addict and you're watching this video, it is most likely because you want to stop. Or you've already stopped and you want to stay stopped. Or maybe even because you've been stopped against your will and you're being forced to watch this video. No matter the reason, please know that recovery from a meth addiction is entirely possible. Tens of thousands of people have put their lives back together again, free from methamphetamine. You can too. The first step in recovering from meth is to get stopped. You may be able to do this on your own, or you may do it in jail, or maybe you can do it in a hospital or a detox center. Regardless of how you get stopped, you'll most likely go through some withdrawal. Let's take a look at what withdrawing from methamphetamine will entail. Obviously, during a meth run, you probably haven't been eating or sleeping all that well. If you're coming off of an extended run, your body is going to want to catch up on some of that sleep. At a certain point, your body basically says, "Hey, I've had enough," and it begins shutting down. This is known as the crash and can last anywhere from 1 to 3 days. Now, during this period, you may sleep and you may become somewhat lifeless for an extended period of time. After the crash comes the meth hangover. This can last anywhere from 2 to 14 days. During this stage of withdrawal, you may feel physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted, dehydrated, and really hungry. Your body just can't seem to get enough carbohydrates. You could also feel very depressed, and you might experience really volatile mood swings. And more than likely, you're going to suffer some really intense cravings for meth. Once your meth hangover has faded away, usually within 2 weeks, you'll get into what some people call the honeymoon phase. Now, during the honeymoon phase, which typically lasts about a month, you'll actually feel pretty good physically and emotionally. You'll start getting your energy back, be able to laugh a little, and generally feel pretty good. This is a great time to dive into your program by going to 12-step meetings and meeting other recovering addicts. You might start feeling as if you have this meth thing licked, but be really careful, you still have some rough times ahead of you. During this period of time, you may start experiencing using dreams. Dreams about using meth are real common in recovering meth addicts, and they can be pretty unsettling. You'll wake up from a using dream feeling as if you really used meth, and maybe feeling some of the guilt and the shame attached to using. Using dreams might even make you want to use more meth once you wake up. It's a good idea to have somebody that you can talk to about using dreams when you have them. Talking about using dreams and talking about cravings tends to take the power out of them. At about 6 weeks into your recovery, you might hit what some people call the wall. The wall is actually the onset of post-acute withdrawal syndrome. Post-acute withdrawal syndrome is the period of time where your brain and body are starting to fine-tune themselves and to normalize themselves and to adjust back to life without methamphetamine. Now, it takes 1 to 2 years for the brain to completely recover from the effects of methamphetamine. But you'll notice the effects of post-acute withdrawal syndrome most intensely from 6 weeks of sobriety until 4 months of sobriety. Hitting the wall can be pretty discouraging if you don't know that it's coming. A lot of addicts spend their first 4 weeks in treatment. Now, 2 weeks out of treatment, they suddenly hit this wall and they don't know what they hit. All they know is that a lot of the old negative feelings and thoughts are back, and they don't have their treatment counselors or their peers from treatment to rely on anymore. This can be a real dangerous time for meth addicts. Just knowing that the wall is there and that it's normal to feel this way 6 weeks off of meth can actually help out a lot. During the first couple of months of post-acute withdrawal syndrome, you'll feel a lot of boredom, loneliness, fatigue, and some depression. It's easy to get discouraged during this phase of your recovery. You will undoubtedly start having some thoughts about using again. Cravings can be a real problem, and it's important to learn how to deal with cravings during this phase. Remember that cravings only last around 3 to 5 minutes unless you decide to act upon them. One strategy for dealing with cravings is to simply wait them out while you focus on the reasons that you no longer want to do meth. Rather than thinking about the meth that you can't do, force yourself to focus on the good things that recovery is going to bring to you. Telling on yourself is another good strategy for dealing with cravings and using thoughts. Try calling up a clean and sober friend or your sponsor, or get to a meeting and talk about the cravings and the thoughts. For some reason, talking about a craving seems to take the power out of it. You can also try playing the tape to the end. This is where you force yourself to think past the meth high and look at the consequences that always follow using the meth. Getting through post-acute withdrawal syndrome will definitely be easier if you have the support of clean and sober friends who are also trying to stay away from methamphetamine. A good place to meet clean and sober friends is a 12-step meeting. You might want to try Narcotics Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous. Finding a sponsor from one of these groups will increase your chances of achieving long-term sobriety. Quitting meth is difficult and it's tricky. This may be the most difficult thing that you have ever done in your life. It's important that you have your wits about you. For this reason, it's best if you not consume any mind-altering drugs. A common mistake that many people make when attempting to get clean from meth is to try to ease the withdrawal symptoms through the use of alcohol or marijuana. Now, this is a bad idea for a couple of different reasons. First off, when you get high on anything, it tends to awaken the cravings for methamphetamine. Unfortunately, when you experience those cravings while you're in a compromised state of mind from drinking or smoking weed, it's much easier to give in to the cravings. The second reason is that even if you never use meth again, you're still feeding your addiction. And it's entirely possible that your insatiable appetite for meth will simply transform itself into an insatiable appetite for weed or an insatiable appetite for alcohol. This is what's known as cross addiction, and it's much more common than you might think. If you are truly serious about achieving a lifetime freedom from methamphetamine, total abstinence from all mind-altering substances is your best bet. As time goes on, you may find that you suffer from a co-occurring mental or emotional disorder such as depression, anger problems, codependency, or anxiety. It's important to begin addressing these issues because all of them can work against your sobriety. For example, depression can lead you to eventually wanting to do meth just simply as a way to lift the depression. A good therapist or addictions counselor can help you to learn skills to help you cope with emotional problems and with real life situations, which can be pretty baffling at times. If you've been prescribed medication for depression or anxiety, it's a good idea to keep taking your medication, but still learn the coping skills. Now, there may come a time when you don't believe that you need your medication anymore. At that point, you should talk to your doctor and then follow his recommendations. It's also important that you develop a strong support system. Membership in a 12-step program will enable you to build a support system of people who are keenly aware of what you're going through while you break free from your meth addiction. 12-step programs have proven to be one of the most successful methods for getting clean from methamphetamine. Not everybody who goes to 12-step meetings actually works the 12 steps, but you'll find that working through the 12 steps has several benefits which will help you to stay clean. One recovery meth addict is known for saying that if you want to stay clean, you have to build a life for yourself that you're not willing to trade for any amount of dope. Working through the 12 steps will help you to build that type of life. Another thing which many recovering meth addicts have found to be very helpful is to begin developing the more spiritual side of your life. Having a higher power to lean upon and having a spiritual component in your life might give you that extra bit of strength to overcome your methamphetamine addiction. For the recovering meth user, sex can be a big problem. You may have become accustomed to methamphetamine-fueled sex, and now, without meth, sex may seem awkward and not as fulfilling. It's important to give that time. Eventually, your body and your brain will begin to enjoy regular sex without the use of meth. Sex will be different, but it's still very good, and you might just find that you derive a lot of satisfaction from the intimacy that clean and sober sex allows you. As you go along in your sobriety, you might find that you need to deal with some issues from the past. Sometimes our past can come back to haunt us. Old wounds from the past, resentments, guilt, shame, fears, insecurities. These are all some of the things that need to be dealt with. If you don't deal with your old emotional baggage, you might end up being so miserable that you end up using again. Working through the 12 steps can help you to get rid of a lot of your old emotional baggage. Working with a good therapist can also help in this area. Finally, a lot of recovering addicts begin to find that helping other people really adds a lot of satisfaction to their lives and helps them to stay clean. Once you have a little clean time under your belt, it might be a good idea to help other meth addicts to break free from their addictions. As a member of a 12-step program, you'll probably have this opportunity quite often. Life without meth is not only possible, but it's been realized by tens of thousands of former meth addicts. Getting free can be difficult, but it can definitely be accomplished. and it's entirely possible for you to live a happy and productive life free from the grips of your meth addiction.